Nicole Huntsman here from moderncosmic.com. We have got our sun sign compatibility here on this video. If you know what sun sign means, fast forward to the timestamp you see or the description of the video. So in Western astrology, we take the year, the 12 calendar months, okay, and we divide them up according to the Earth's relationship to the sun. And this makes sense if you think back in the day when we were farmers. The movement of the sun, it's actually our movement, the tilt of our Earth relative to the sun and how it affects the seasons was very important. Springtime, time to plant, summertime to take care of and tend the fields, and of course fall time to harvest, and then winter was time to preserve the things that you had stored and make them last till spring again. Now, in astrology, we look at these 4 important dates that are repeatable, they happen every year, and they are the spring equinox, the summer solstice, the fall equinox, and the winter solstice, okay? We have our zodiac signs all set up according to these solar events. In the springtime, when we have our spring equinox, March 21st, this is that time of year when the equator of the Earth is facing the sun, directly, and the Earth is level, so to speak. So, we are on an axis and the Earth tilts. At this point in the year, we're level. That's why you can spin an egg and it will spin. Now, that's the beginning of the zodiac year, and really should be the beginning of our year. It would make sense to have the time when we go from winter, where we have more darkness than light, to the time when it's equal. We have an equal amount of daylight and equal amount of darkness, and then we move into the time of the year, the spring, when we have more light and less darkness each day, okay, until we hit the summer solstice, where we have the most light, more light, and less of the darkness. So with the zodiac, your sun sign falls during a month between those 4 events. So your sun sign is going to fall into one of these segments, okay? We've got the 12 months divided up into 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, according to those solar events. And then in each of those sections, we have 3 zodiac signs, okay? Your sun sign is important in that it shows your general life force. If you think of the sun is the star in our solar system. It is the mass, the giant mass, relative to us anyway, that is holding our solar system together. Without the sun, without our star, we wouldn't be here, and if something happened to our sun, we would all die, we would perish. We eat food that's made from the energy of the sun. We are literally made of sun, which is pretty cool. Someone's sun sign shows you the basic premise upon which their personality is built. It's like a canvas that we're going to paint upon. It doesn't have any paint on it yet, it's just the canvas. Is it wood? Is it metal? Is it canvas? Is it a panel? Is it round? Is it square? How big is it? How little is it? The zodiac sign will sort of illuminate, and it will explain and make granular sort of this very basic part of what we have to work with, okay, with the personality. So it's the first step in building, when you're looking at an astrology birth chart, it's the first thing you look at because you're going to build upon it, all right? And then all the brushstrokes come with the moon and all the angular houses and the planets and the aspects between the planets. That's when it becomes a beautiful picture. But until then, it's just you're one of the 12 zodiac signs. This is very general. Sun signs are general. It's a general vibe. You've got someone who's kind of more of a feeler, someone who's more of a thinker. But there are all different types of feelers and there are all different types of thinkers, okay? We get that granularity by looking at the entire birth chart and by putting the 2 people together, okay? You can have a feeler and a thinker get together and be really happy if they've got other things in their birth chart that make nice compatibility interaspects. If for some reason your sun signs don't get along well, let's say we've got someone who is, let's say we've got a Capricorn and an Aquarius, very different energies. Capricorn's conservative, Aquarius is an iconoclast and does their own thing. On the surface, sun sign wise, these 2 aren't going to jive perfectly. But if you look underneath, maybe they have moons that are both in water, and it gives them an emotional warmth, or it gives them an emotional depth to the cooler Capricorn Aquarius facade. There's another thing you want to look at between your compatibility charts. There are several, but another important primary planetary aspect that you want to look at, or planetary placement, I should say, that you want to look at. And I'm going to talk about this at the end of the video, so stay tuned, watch the compatibility, and at the very end I'll explain to you how to find If your sun compatibility isn't great, there's another thing you can look at that will indicate whether or not the two of you are going to have long-lasting happiness together, or if it's going to be sort of a no-win battle, okay? All right, let's get on to our sun signs, and please leave me comments if you have questions, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Aries. Aries are our people born March 21st to April 19th. This is the first sign in the zodiac. These people are born during the time of the year when we're moving from the wintertime into the spring. So there's a vitality. There is an outgoing movement of energy, just like a plant would be blooming, a tulip would pop up through the soil. That's sort of the same thing that I see with an Aries. They're dynamic, they're outwardly focused, passionate, they need fuel, and they are fighters. Now, Aries also, these are the independent soldiers of the zodiac. They're our protagonists. They're the first person, the individual setting out on this journey of the zodiac. And as you move through the different zodiac signs, you'll see how this journey progresses. Self-starters like Aries, a lot of times they're perfectly comfortable going it alone. They're quite comfortable in leadership roles. They prefer to be in leadership roles. And so partnerships sometimes for Aries can be a little tricky. While they crave it, that's human nature to desire closeness and warmth and affection from other people. Aries sometimes don't always know how to go about getting it. They can be a little bit combative and a little what's the word, scratchy, in their relationships. But overall, these are brave, inspiring, self-starting, innovative, wonderful people that they just require a partner with some patience, and a partner who also is willing to be just as passionate and fiery as they are, but maybe perhaps a little bit more grounded. On the shadow side of Aries, we do have an individual who can be a little self-centered. They can be a little like the fool from the tarot deck, stepping off the cliff while the dog is barking. Don't go that way, They can sometimes be overly optimistic, or they can perhaps, instead of planning, they just want to jump into something and get going, and quite impulsive, okay? They can be a little difficult to teach at times. And they can sometimes lack the emotional tact that is required in love relationships and just general interpersonal relating. But if you have patience with an Aries, they are not the type to hold a grudge. They will usually kind of, they've let it out and then they're good after. So typically they're quite forgiving, and they have this childlike nature to them where it's almost a naivete and an innocence. They don't really mean anything by it. They just sometimes, like I said, they're not necessarily easy to teach, and so they have to kind of do things over and over again until they figure them out. Aries in love. These are individuals, right? They like to make the first move. Aries prefers being the one doing the chasing, at least initially. Even Aries females, with an Aries female, they can sometimes be accused of being too direct or too forward with men. In our culture, at least, I'm here in the United States, in Western culture, traditionally men were the ones who would take that lead role. So female Aries sometimes can be accused of being ball busters or bitches or too brave or too headstrong, or these things. And I say bowl to that. I think that Aries we need Aries men and women. These are the ones that are the brave, courageous individuals that will go for something. Now, in love, they need passion. They need passion, they need sex. They're a very physical sign, and they actually need fights, believe it or not. And when I say fights, I don't mean, out and out emotional drama, but they like a little bit of a little bit of a tension or friction in their relationships. They need that. If there was someone who doesn't really push back or lean back against them or was always pleasing them, they'll get annoyed and they'll get bored. And you don't want an annoyed, bored Aries, because you won't have them for long. They will be out of there, okay? Aries expectations in love. Because they're so passionate, they give the passionate spontaneously, freely, just whenever they want to. They're not the most dependable, they're going to do it when they want to do it, unless they have a lot of earth and other things in their chart. And even then, they kind of have to be the boss about when they're going to express their love. You can't really boss an Aries around. They can be this sort of childlike. They can be a little bit selfish, where they want all of their partner's love and attention, but they don't really have a problem with flirting or this kind of thing with other people, and nothing is meant by it. But they they need to have their freedom, but they also need to know that they are number one, that there's no one else in their partner's life. Aries' biggest fear, and this goes for all the zodiac signs, you look at their strength, and that's always tells you where their biggest fear is. With an Aries, you do have a bold, brave, enterprising individual, okay? But on the inside, they're like a little kid. The reason they're bold and brave is because it just doesn't occur to them that there's going to be an issue with them just striking it out and doing their thing and saying what they think. And, you know, they haven't, it's almost like their soul hasn't had enough experience, it hasn't been battered around enough to have sort of learned this lesson. So their biggest fear is actually they're quite vulnerable on the inside. This is like a little kid on the inside, and really what they really want is love, affection, warmth, and belonging. And I suppose it's what most of us want, but because Aries puts on this whole facade of being brave and independent, not needing anyone, you sort of just assume they really are not needing anyone, but that's actually quite incorrect. So anyone who can recognize the innocence in an Aries and can give them their space to be themselves, but also that needs them. The person that is emotionally brave enough to say to an Aries, I need your bravery and courage to keep me safe, to protect me. That is a way to tap into the part of the Aries that, yes, the part that's vulnerable, but they can project that onto you. It's a way for them to protect in an indirect way their own inner vulnerabilities, okay? So it's a little trick. All right, so on to the compatibility. Virgo Sun. Virgo are people born between August 23rd and September 22nd. So this is around the time of the fall equinox. You know, moving into Libra, you've got right after the fall equinox. Now with Virgo, Virgos are our devoted, earthy sun signs. Virgo's ruled by Mercury. That's our planet, the little planet, Mercury, that you know, orbits around the sun in about 88 days to create 1 year for Mercury. This gives our Virgos and our Geminis a quickness of mind or a nervousness. It plays out a little bit differently in Gemini and Virgo. In Virgo, through Earth, through this mutable Earth, you see an individual who is analytical. They appreciate categorizing things. They appreciate doing things a particular way. They like systems, planning, analyzing, etc. That's quite Virgo. Virgo is kind of misunderstood too. The symbol is the Virgin, and to me I like to think of the Vestal Virgins and this sort of this idea of this sacred purity, and you can see that applied metaphorically in the way that they mentally process things. They're seeking for a perfect system, a perfect order and way of doing things. My puppy's crazy, he's playing with the stuff. Oh my gosh, that's funny. So they are seeking this idealistic version of whatever it is they're interested in, whether it's from something as simple as organizing a toolbox to a Virgo who's interested in astrology, for example, who likes to learn about the categorizing. There are a lot of Virgo astrologers or astrologers who have a touch of Virgo on perhaps their Mercury. It's that interest in understanding how a system or a language or symbols, how these things all work and how they explain a deeper process or a deeper, more complex system. Well, high-functioning Virgo, you've got someone who is helpful, they're dependable, they many times operate in a, Virgo energy is an introverted expression of energy, okay? So many times they're comfortable in a role where they're serving someone else, whether it's through being an assistant or whether it's through perhaps just being in the background or in a career where they're in a role where they're observing and analyzing from the sidelines. Now in relationships, this can come out sometimes, we'll talk about this in the low-functioning part, but it can come out as criticism. They can be critical, but on the high side, back to the high side, they're devoted. You've got authentic, genuine people. You've got someone who's got a good eye for detail. They're good at again, analyzing something, breaking it down, making it kind of make logical sense. They like to be in the world of the here and now. There's a practicality and a sensibility to Virgo where you know, they appreciate showing up to appointments on time. They appreciate, you know, sort of doing their duty, like doing the things that they say they'll do. There can be kind of a Boy Scoutish vibe to a male Virgo. I know quite a few actually that have kind of that like do-gooder vibe to them. They've got, like I said, this dutifulness, and there's a responsibility there. And they don't have as much of a need for the ego. It's not a direct, they're not going to be directly motivated for ego strokes. so much as they're going to do things out of a place of it's just like the right thing to do, and they can't not do it that way. And they will appreciate someone who gives them ego strokes. Look at their moon too. You got anything fiery on the moon or earthy, you know, they're not going to be someone who really would like to get some little pats back. Now, Virgo is also quite hardworking. Kind of goes to being dutiful and responsible, but the sixth house, which is the Virgo house, has to do with our daily habits and sort of consistent patterns and the in and out of the minutia of life. And so Virgo is comfortable in the role of taking care of business, you know, getting things done that maybe other people don't want to take care of. The low side, so low functioning Virgo, you'll have someone that can be overly critical. I know quite a few Virgo females, and this is not, by the way, these are people that are some of my favorite people in the world, right? But they can be, Virgo females in particular can be kind of pessimistic because there's a realism there where they can sort of see it, and they've seen the patterns, they've seen people's behavior, and they've seen what happens when this happens, you know? They kind of get like to this place where they become a little disillusioned because a Virgo, they'll show up, they do the stuff that it is that they say that they're going to do, right? They come on time, they, you know, keep their appointments, they go run to the grocery store and don't forget to pick up the ice for you, you know, that kind of thing. That's Virgo. So when you don't show up, or when the world in general kind of, they get screwed sometimes, like we all do, they become a little disheartened and disillusioned by the whole thing. So they can be a little pessimistic and a little anxious as well. Anxiety is a big thing for anyone who has strong Virgo. I have a Virgo Mercury and Virgo Venus in the first house, and I know anxiety. It's because it's like they run at a higher speed than a lot of other people, even mentally, because this is Mercury, which to me is a mercurial a planet. It has to do with the mind. There is a nervousness. A lot of, like, if I was to think of the stereotypical Virgo, they would be quite thin because they're busy, and there's a nervousness there, and there's a anxiousness that's there. So sometimes can have issues of insomnia, things like that. They have high standards. Now, Virgos are idealistic, just like Pisces. To me, this is like this axis of service, and it's this idealistic, value-driven axis. So they appreciate sort of, they have a hierarchy in their mind of how things should sort of operate. And so they'll appreciate when things are, they'll want things to be up here. And they'll also kind of realize that to have things up here is going to be really difficult. Like they know that they're perfectionists. There's quite a realistic, that's almost, I think, their strength and their weakness, right? Like they can really see themselves a lot of times. They can see all their shit. And so they sort of feel bothered by that because they're not reaching, they personally aren't able to hit their own, you know, standard of what they think is ideal. And so they can project it onto other people or relationships, or just assume everyone else is, we're all a bunch of screw ups as well, kind of thing. So they also can be martyrs sometimes. You know, you got this with both Pisces and Virgo, this axis. Anyone who has these zodiac signs strongly noted in their chart. Because, again, it's this ability to give and give and give and give, because it's kind of just, they operate better in the place of taking care of something else behind the scenes, taking care of someone else's problem and fixing it, rather than maybe receiving care from someone, like someone taking care of them. That will make them a little uncomfortable, because that means that they're failing at whatever it is that person has to take care of for them. Remember, they're Virgo and they want to do things to this level. It's like an ideal, and that means that they're not. So they're like, oh, I'm a big loser because you're taking care of me. This is really uncomfortable for me. Even like gift giving, a lot of times Virgos are, I mean, again, look at their moon, all the other thing, they're Venus, but a lot of times gift giving, receiving gifts can be a little awkward for Virgo, or they can be someone that you're like, I'm not really sure what to get for that person exactly, you know, but ultimately they'll enjoy it. So gifts, but okay. Now, Virgo in love. So because you've got a person who has these, you know, pretty high standards, this applies to their love life as well. And, when they fell in love, they have thoroughly sort of analyzed the partner first. Now, I've got a friend who has has an Aries moon, and she's a Virgo, and she's quite spontaneous in love. And you know, she's married now, but when she's dating, she's the kind of person who's very fun and would very much that Aries moon, independent spirit, want to do what she wanted to do. But then after she was sort of seeing someone, then her Virgo analytical nature would kind of set in, and she would sort of analyze things and look at them from, both sides and be like, like this doesn't feel right, or this, so sort of after the fact, it was like this Virgo in hindsight, rearview mirror Virgo thing happening. But, they have this idealistic thing that they're looking for. A hard thing for an idealist is you might have to just come to the realization that there really isn't an ideal. I mean, there is in your head, but as soon as you make something move from the mental space to the physical space in the form of another human, good luck. Like, it's going to be a daily for Virgo. It's got to be a daily recommitment to this other human being, and that recognizing that they're not going to meet the Virgo standards, just as the Virgo doesn't meet their own standards, and that's okay. So sometimes Virgo with this, they can be the high standards. They can also, though, it's really interesting, they have high standards, but then they'll also kind of stick around. So they can be a little sort of passive aggressive or codependent even. I mean, I use those terms very cautiously. I don't mean that Virgos are codependent or that Virgos are passive aggressive. I'm saying think of what that sort of looks like when someone's codependent, when they want to support another person or take care of someone else's needs and keep another person sort of in a place of like addiction or like in a place of weakness so they feel needed. That can happen with Virgo, okay? And so you can sometimes see Virgo Pisces types get with like these narcissistic types, which would be more your Arian, Capricorn, Leo-ish type individuals, okay? You have got this devoted partner. The Virgo in love is devoted. Their devotion just, it's not the Piscean devotion, which would be this merging spiritual oneness thing. It is more like the Vestal Virgin, worshiping the object of their love. They are sacrificing their carnal desires, to perhaps be with other people to devote themselves to the one they love. Okay, so think of it as almost a religious experience, because the Virgo sort of symbolizes it's the virgin, it's the human here on earth looking up to the divine, and Pisces on the opposite end is just that merge of the divine and the earthly. Okay, so Virgos in love, they need that devotion in their partnership. A lot of times Virgo males will put females up on the pedestal, and you're going to fall off, you're going to jump off, or you're going to get pushed off when you're on a pedestal. So being on a pedestal is not comfortable. So Virgo men, don't do that. There's a certain level of devotion that should happen. And when I say devotion, it's like this religious devotion. There's a certain amount that should happen in any relationship, but it should go in both directions, okay? Okay, Virgo expectations in love. So here you go. Here's the problem. You got someone who has high standards in love. They have high standards for themselves, but also for their love match, their partnership, and on their partner themselves. Of course, with that, you're going to be disappointed because people are losers sometimes, right? We are all assholes at times. We all do things contrary to how we would like to do them or how we intend on doing them. We don't show up, or we just let our partner down. So Virgos get disappointed at times. So their expectations in love are kind of, in a sense, it's funny. It's like they sort of have these high standards, these ideals, but they like know because they're so practical. They're so damn practical. They're like, you're not going to be able to meet my ideal, my standards. So it's kind of, you can almost turn into like a pessimism, like, oh well, I mean, it's not going to be what I want it to be, and so they can just not go all the way in, even sometimes, or hold back and still hold on to this little idea, this ideal love that exists somewhere out there in the ethers that they'll never get to. All right. Because also when they do really love you and they have that devotion to their partner, they get disappointed. They're let down many times by their partner, right? They realize, I love you fiercely, but you might not be able to do it in return. Okay. And so self-sacrifice, if you can do things for them where you're sacrificing something that matters to you for the Virgo partner, that will be something that really means a lot to them. Showing up for them, showing up, being a backbone, being like a strong, united force. They do want to look up to their partner. And if you let them down, they sort of become disillusioned and they lose a little bit of respect for you. So you have to, show up for them as best you can. And a Virgo will give you this sense that you want to be a better person. You want to be in a better place than you are right now. You want to live up to these standards that are actually really quite beautiful. They're ideals of what true blossoming divine romantic love looks like. Okay, Virgo's biggest fear. So yeah, Virgo, if we're thinking of this archetype of the virgin, I always think of sort of this religious virgin. It makes me think of nuns or the Vestal Virgins, whatever. That means the partner is God. The partner is divinity. It's the divine. Virgo is learning how to access the divine or the oneness, the same oneness that Pisces is all about on the opposite end. But they're learning how to do it from this place of object, subject, or like this place of they are this worshiper and the partner is the divinity. Now, this is very, you need to think about this in kind of a big abstract way, okay? But they'll serve the partner. They'll defer to the partner's needs many times, Virgo, especially Virgo females. But at the same time, their worry, their fear is that their partner won't be able to love them in return in the same way. So, you know, you can have a dark Virgo, someone who is pretending to worship the partner and very charming and saying all the right things, but on the inside is not really going all the way in because they've lost kind of hope that anyone else can match where they're going to go anyway. So what difference does it make? So that can happen. So keep that Virgo feeling like they are your beautiful ideal of what love is, and that their devotion does not go unnoticed, and that you shine your light on them, you know, so to speak. Aries and Virgo, these two are going to fit this really lovely archetype that I'm going to use. So if you've ever heard of a knight in shining armor and the fair maiden, that's what we have with these two. Now, knight in shining armor and the fair maiden, we all know, or we should all know, that this is a story that it's happily ever after. We never see what happens after the knight saves the princess, right? Because it's not a story that's meant to be moved into the real world. What will initially attract or repulse these two from one another is this story. Aries will feel like the knight in shining armor. He will feel like he will see this idealized version of love in this Virgo, okay? Virgo has this maiden, virginal, this quality of wanting to serve and take care of their partner, and this detachment and this elusiveness to them, this purity. Aries will see that and want to protect that. Aries will want to go after it and they'll want to protect that, okay? Once Aries has captured this Virgo, many times this illusion fades and goes away. And you see that we have two very different people. Long-term interaction between these two, we've got two very different people. We have Aries, who is this fiery, independent, passionate sign, and we have Virgo, who is more of a cooler, critical, analytical, quite a cerebral sign actually, even though it's an Earth sign. When you combine Earth, which is practicality, it's concrete, it's the real world, with Mercury, which is what rules Virgo, that gives this cerebral quality. That means these people are analytical. They like to categorize things, they like to have things make sense. They can be worriers, they can be anxious. Aries doesn't have time for any of that and just doesn't get it. And so Virgo's sort of natural tendency to be like a worrier or to be, you know, overanalyzing everything will just drive Aries crazy. And then Aries is going to feel unsatisfied with sort of the love nature of this relationship. They're typically physically, although Virgo can be a very passionate sign, especially if you look at their Mars and other things in their chart, Virgo has this analytical nature to it where Aries can feel a little criticized. And Aries is very sensitive about being criticized and will sort of shut down, or, you know, they can be pouty too, you know, in a sense. So that can cause problems with these two. So conflict and harmony with these two, you've got issues of spontaneity versus someone who needs a little time to analyze. So Aries wants spontaneity. The Virgo needs a little more time to analyze the situation, then move forward. Reflection between these two, you know, if Aries can take time to reflect and give that Virgo space and time to sort of slowly move into something new, or to also give Virgo the opportunity to voice their concerns or to talk with them about the things they're worried about. If Aries can be selfless enough to allow that Virgo that opportunity, then you can have some harmony here. As far as how they'll harmonize, I mean, Virgo is a sign that's all about deferring to the partner. It's very much an energy that is more shy and receptive, so they have no problem kind of taking care of the partner's needs. That Aries needs to reciprocate it and needs to say thank you, or else the Virgo will feel unappreciated. And Virgo does not do well with a partner who's not reciprocating and not showing up for them as well. As far as how other people will see this coupling, they'll see it as kind of an odd coupling. Maybe initially it will make sense, but they'll feel like the Virgo's voice is lost. There's this sense that the Aries, it's funny because I see Aries men in particular with sort of Virgo type females. The Aries male wants to feel like he's a hero and he's like brave and he's taking care of her and he's the man. And this Virgo female is quite feminine, and it reflects well on him. But the way that they actually interact behind the scenes is very different from how they would look on the outside. And if it's a Virgo male with an Aries female, that Virgo male, it's kind of interesting that the roles kind of switch a little bit. The Virgo male is also one that enjoys this idealized idea of love and being the one who's pursuing this dream, this vision of this ideal feminine. And in the Aries female, he may capture her or help her. Maybe he's found an Aries female that needs some help with something. He's able to help her, and then once they get together, that Aries female is going to resent needing his help, and then the whole illusion falls apart. So really, this knight in shining armor thing doesn't work in either direction. If these two can see each other and accept each other for who they are instead of the illusion they projected onto one another, then it can be a relationship that could work. It on, these areas that are important and relative to romance and romantic compatibility, which a computer can't do. A computer is just databases of, aspects between